Hi there, so I'm just working on a mix at the moment. I just wanted to share with you some of the tom processing I've got going on. Okay, so let's take a little look at the track. Cool, so that's the awesome drumming of Max Maxwell. He's also in a band called Mountain Caller, if you want to go check them out. So let's see what processing I'm doing to the toms. So I've got some tracks here, got a tom here, and also a floor tom. And what I've done is I've cut them out, so I've got a bit more control over how loud they are. So let's listen to tom number 1. Quite ringy, but often you don't hear a lot of the ring when the other instruments are in, so it's really important to listen to your music in context all the time. So other than cutting out a bit of low end that we don't want, maybe to try and get rid of some of the kick drum bleed, we can take a little look here at some of the EQ that I'm adding. So this is the sound of the toms, or this particular tom here without any EQ. Not very interesting with. Okay, so let's take a little look at what I'm doing. So I like to think of toms, or I like to treat toms a bit like their kick drums. So I'm adding some 60 here for our low end. 60 is often a great frequency for these kind of drums. And I'm adding some high mids, 7.2 for our sort of bite. And I'm adding some 12K for the slap of the drum. I really like this Neve EQ. It's the Schoeps Neve EQ. It's just got the right frequency notches, I find, for EQing drums. This for me is a really, really great way to work. Let's take a look at our floor tom next. So, again, removing a bit of the low end that I don't want, probably to remove some of the kick drum bleed. More Schoeps EQ. Let's take it out and have a listen. Not something particularly exciting with. So I'm adding some 220 instead of 60 this time, because I'm adding 60 in a different way, which you're about to see. So you've got this low end going on. Again, I'm adding some 7.2. Here. And some high 12K for the slap. And finally, one of my favorite plugins, the R-Bass. So this EQ here, you can see I wasn't boosting 60, but what I am doing is I'm using the R-Bass here to bring out some of the 60. Without the R-Bass. With. So it's just adding a lot of depth. Again, I'm sort of treating them like kick drums. Now, what I'm also doing is I've cut my toms out, but I decided to leave the bleed from the tom mics still in the track. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to do this, but I find that the extra bleed from the toms can add a lot of excitement. I've EQ'd them in the same way that I'm doing the toms, so it doesn't sound strange. This is without the tom bleed. With the tom bleed. To me, that sounds way more exciting with all the tom bleed in it. So I ended up leaving it in, but turning it down. So I've got the toms, the actual tom hits, louder than the bleed. I've got all of these going into a tom master. This is the aux for the tom master. And I'm doing a couple of things to this tom master. I'm sending it to a room verb. So I've got a verb here where I'm cutting out some of the low ends, so we've not got too much rumble going on. And it's a very, very short room verb by Valhalla. Really, really great plugin. I use it a lot. I use it on drums all the time. And what it does is just adds, it makes you feel like your drum kit's all in the same room. And it makes the toms, particularly, and snare, feel really meaty. So if we mute the verb, not sounding too exciting. We put the verb back in. Really adds a lot of meat. The final thing I'm doing to the tom aux is just adding some distortion. Distortion sounds like this. So I'm not going crazy with the distortion. It's the Berserk distortion from Waves. I'm doing nothing really crazy with it, but without that distortion, with the distortion, all of a sudden it starts to become really exciting. Some of the other processing I'm doing, which affects the sound, is that this is affecting my whole drum kit. I've got a drum crush, and I'm not really compressing that much, to be honest. If you have a look at this Fairchild, the needle's moving a bit, but it's not moving a lot. But what this does add is it adds some more harmonic distortion, which we always like, without the drum crush. Not very exciting with... Of course, with all these things, you are adding level as well. We've got one more drum distortion track, which is affecting the whole drum kit. Good old Devil Lock. If you don't have this, I suggest you get it for drums. It just sounds fantastic on drums. It crushes the drums and it distorts them. I always put it on the fast setting. So quite an extreme sound without it in the track. With it in the track. Sort of the money, really. It's really bringing a lot of excitement. And the very last thing we're doing is we're putting it through some tape. So this is adding some saturation, it's adding some compression, it's sort of gluing the whole drum kit together. Without it. With it. again, it's just adding a lot of excitement to the drums in this particular part. And the only other thing that's worth mentioning is that on my master bus, got a little bit of stereo width going on. Bit of happy face EQ without it. I think that's adding quite a lot. And then we're going through some more tape. So this is the whole track is going through this tape machine. And this is how I get epic tom fills. Just have a listen to it one more time. I hope you found this useful. Write anything in the comments section if you have any questions, and you can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook. Thanks.